Hello and welcome to our program, Women Engage. We're so pleased that you could join us today. We have a very important topic to discuss. We're talking about women and abuse. If you would like to follow us, discuss with us, engage with other women on this topic, please look for us on our Facebook page, look for Women Engage, and join in the conversation. But for now, I want to welcome our panelists for today. Thank you for joining us. We may have viewers who are watching us for the first time, so I'm going to ask that you introduce yourself. And today I'll ask that you also share with us something that someone could do to you or for you that would lift you up and just cheer your spirit. So I'll start. My name is Jocelyn Isabirie. Something that someone could do for me that would really cheer me up, make me happy. I love to eat. I love good food. So if someone prepared a special meal, lovely food for me, that would really cheer me up and lift my spirits.
Thank you. My name is Phoebe Nyamache. What someone can do to make me happy? I love my children, and I love children who love God. If someone can help my children grow to love the Lord, that will make me happy.
I'm Rose Misati. Something someone would do to make me happy is I love gifts. I would love to get a good gift. Which gift am I talking about? A good book to read, because I love reading.
My name is Debbie Maloba. Something I would like somebody to do for me is to look at me when I'm sad, when I'm stressed, and come and pray with me.
Okay. Well, I think everything everyone said would also make me happy. And we could go on. There are so many things that we can do to each other and for each other that lift our spirits, that make us happy. But unfortunately, such is the case with humanity. There are also many things that we do to each other that hurt one another and often even do terrible and sometimes irreparable damage. And so that is what we're talking about today. The things that we often do to each other. And I say often because when we talk about abuse, this is not something that is not common in our societies, unfortunately. We know that abuse takes place worldwide in all societies, regardless of economic or social status, educational achievement. It's a prevalent problem. And it's a very big problem in our African continent today. But often it might be something that we don't deal with, we don't address, we don't want to talk about in our communities. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's so difficult for us to talk about issues of abuse?
I would think it may be because of the patriarchal nature of our societies. And so for a long time, women have been treated as second-rate citizens, and abuse has been part of it. So speaking about or against abuse appears like we are speaking against the men. Yeah.
Yeah, and also it's because we are used to what people are doing to us. Sometimes we do not discover that we are being abused. And then you just let it go and you think this is normal. And sometimes we're the ones abusing. You see, you can say something that is negative, that you think is your strength. So you just let it go because it is part of your life. And then you just keep quiet, continuing enjoying it. That's why it's hard for people to talk about it.
Especially when it's part of the cultural practice.
Yes.
So
yes.
There are certain things that are part of your cultural practice, yes. And so it's almost normal. The expectation that certain things will be done, yes. That we may categorize as abuse. And maybe just from what Rose was talking about, the patriarchal society, I think we need to also remember that men can also be abused, but also the fact that we have that kind of society makes it difficult for them to come out and talk about abuse, because in that kind of society where the man should dominate, for him to say that he is being abused can also be very, very difficult. So what do we, when we're talking about abuse, what kind of things are we talking about? what actually constitutes abuse?
Abuse is aggression towards another person with the motive of control and dominance. And it can be physical, where somebody is hurt, kicked, hit, beaten. It can be sexual, where somebody is raped, abused, defiled. And also it can be emotional, which has devastating effects. But emotional is whereby words are either used or not used. So it comprises ignoring, rejecting, mocking, isolating, and it's very devastating and it's damaging. Unlike physical abuse, where somebody can say, I was hit here, I have a wound. In emotional abuse, there's no wound, at least physically. Yes. But inside, it's very damaging to the person, to the survivor or the victim, so to speak. But to also say that normally it's interlinked. Yes. Yeah, usually it's not in isolation. It can be 2 or 3 or all of them together. Yes.
Yes, Rose, also I can say that socially also you may be abused, even spiritually. As some people, it is linked. So all what you have said is connected. Is sometimes socially, how do we live? How do we relate?
That's interesting. When Debbie talked about spiritual abuse, sometimes we don't think about it. And sometimes we use our spirituality to abuse others, to make ourselves look holy and show them where they are, show them that they are not worthy. They deserve to be stoned. And I have the word of God to back up what I'm saying. So sometimes we even use our spirituality in a way that causes emotional abuse and damage to people. So we've talked about what abuse is, and this is a topic that we could go on and talk many examples. But Phoebe, I want to ask you if you can come in here. We're pleased that you could come and share your experience with us, because you underwent abuse in your marriage. Can you just share a little bit about that with our audience?
Thank you. To talk about abuse, I can, if they were to be ranked from the worst to the least, then I think emotional abuse comes on the top. Emotional abuse can lead to devastating effects. It can lead to death. You can be sick. Suicidal. You can kill yourself. It also, it's a manipulation. Someone makes you to be a puppet of what they want you to be. So emotional abuse is the worst of all, the kind of abuse. I've gone through both emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. And emotional was the one that really took me down. I was married for more than 10 years, and I've been separated for 3 years now. And the kind of control I got from my ex-husband then made me sick at some point. I gained weight. I'm coming up from 84 kgs to 58 kgs because of abuse. I developed some ulcers because of the abuse. Especially, I was controlled. I could not have as much friends as anybody else could, because there was that fear, if you have friends, you might disclose this abuse to the friends. And from there, they might advise you. So there was some isolation. I was controlled on how many friends, who were my friends. So there was that control of the friends. And also there was verbal abuse. I was made to feel like I am a nobody. It brought down my self-esteem because it didn't matter what I did. And infidelity is what made this abuse come. They want to cover, when someone wants to cover infidelity, they use abuse. So someone will come with so many things in the house, but in the real sense, they want to cover for the infidelity. I can give an example. For example, he comes to the house and he has already eaten outside. So my food will either have a lot of salt or no salt. At some point, at some point I couldn't differentiate between food with salt or without, tea with sugar or without sugar, because the more I put small, there's no sugar. The more I put more, there's a lot of sugar. You see? So infidelity came in and brought the abuse more to me than anything else. So he kept on abusing me physically at some point, but I never gave up. Prayer was my friend. I used to pray. I say pray without ceasing. Yeah.
So when you talk about physical abuse, how did that manifest itself?
When I discovered about the infidelity that was going on, I confronted him. So when I confronted him, he tried to be physical so that I don't ask more questions. So in fact, at some point when I wanted to us to have a meeting, family meetings, because of what was going on about the infidelity. So he didn't want the meetings to come on. He wanted us to just keep quiet and things just go on. So I had to confront her. This one we have to talk. So from there he could get physical. What are you talking about? It's us who are having problems. Why do we want to involve other members? But then sometimes someone needs to come in. It's not just about the family. Yeah.
So I think maybe from there we can talk about what does happen when you have been facing abuse. How do you deal with it? And Phoebe has told us one of the things, and that is, don't keep it to yourself. So in your case, you reached out to family members.
I reached out to family members. When I thought the family members were not giving me enough help because of maybe they are too involved in this. They will always favor one side of the party. So I thought it was not working with the families. I went out to the church. I talked to my pastor and got the case up with the church. So I followed up the case through the church. He promised to change. So we went back home with a promise that I am going to change. And I'm going to come back to church and worship with you. My whole intention was not to force him to go to church, but I wanted him to be a better person. From there, God will lead him. Yeah, God will lead him to church. But after we finished with the pastor, we get outside the door, things change. It's the same again. Yeah, business as usual.
Yeah, and also I would like to say that the first step, the abuser has to take full responsibility for their actions and not blame anybody and not have an excuse for anything. And I like what Phoebe did because she spoke firmly and she said, no, this one, we have to talk about it. It's not just about the two of us. So the abused needs to realize that it's not because of anything they have done or not done to prompt him to do it. So it is not their responsibility. So they need to be firm and say, and have healthy boundaries and say, you will not hit me, you will not talk to me like that, you will not again be unfaithful and come to me. Because many times, by the way, the abusers, they are good people. Yes. They have good intentions for their families, but probably because they have been wounded, so they go around wounding others. Yes. So they also need to be helped. They need to go through therapy so that they can be healed. So in that way, they will not wound other people. Yeah. So many times you look at the abuser as an animal, as a beast, but deep down they are good people and they have good intentions.
Because there is a motive behind everything. Maybe, as she said, he has been also traumatized. Yes. Now to react, to compensate on what he's going through, he needs also something. He is a human being.
Mm-hmm. Abuse is actually a vicious cycle.
Yes.
Studies have shown that children who grow up in homes where there's abuse, they have a very high likelihood of either being abusers or being abused. Yes. Because that is what they knew. Yes. So that is what they tend towards to. Even when we tell them about an abuse-free society, they don't understand. Because what they saw at home is abuse.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's a very important point to underline what Rose has said. In a home when you, if a woman is being abused by her husband and you have children, and in Phoebe's case, you had children, sometimes there's the temptation to say, well, let me just bear it.
For the sake of
the children. For the sake of the children. But what you need to realize is, as you are bearing it for the sake of your children, you're actually damaging your children. And then that cycle will continue. So your child is likely to either themselves be a victim of abuse or themselves become an abuser, because they are now being, you know, the Bible tells us by beholding we become changed. And I think, you know, God's word is so rich, because all the things that it said so many, you know, thousands of years ago, it's being proved by science. It's true. By beholding, we do become changed. And so it's good that you reached the point where you said, this has to stop. I will keep talking until someone helps me to deal with this. Not just for your own sake, but also for the sake of your children. It's very important that that abuse has to come to an end.
And this reminds me, the last abuse, when I decided now it's time to say it's over, it's when I was abused physically and my son was there. You know, he just walked in and came and found the man hitting me. And then he just didn't say anything. He just looked at it and went out quietly and sat down. So later he could look at me and ask me, Mommy, you look sad. Every time. Mommy, you look sad. Why? So he started asking me questions that he never used to ask me. Why are you so sad? So he expected me to explain, but
why you were sad?
Yeah, why I was sad, but at that moment I could not explain. And then, you know, things changed. All the tenants came in. It was so loud, I had to scream. So all the tenants came, and we were new. We were like a month old in that new house.
So your neighbors all came running?
All the neighbors came in. They came in and they asked him, what are you doing? So when he tried to explain that in fact, he changed the story. He told the neighbors, I and my sister was there.
You're the ones.
We are the ones abusing him. Oh. We are the ones abusing. So when he said that, I told them, no, if this is where it has got to, I only need 2 things from this house. I need my children and my certificates. I don't want anything else. So I picked my children. I couldn't find even my certificate. I said, so long as I have my children, I'll go. So I walked out. In fact, I went to the police station and reported to the authority, but they don't give help. The help they give is so minimal. I just explained, and they told me, now what do you want us to do? Okay, call him and tell him to come. I said, I cannot. How do you call again? How do you call again? So I told them, are you helping me or not? So they told me, we have told you to call your husband. So I told them, it's okay. If you can't help me, let me just go. So I just walked out with the children. They called me back. I told them, it's okay. If you don't have any help, I'll find help somewhere. So I went and we stayed outside the police station for almost an hour. I didn't want to go to the relatives because they'll still tell me, go back.
And make it work.
I didn't want to call anyone because they'll tell me, no, you can't. You have to go back. You can't leave your home. So I kept, this one I kept to myself. I never told anybody. So I went back. After an hour, I went back to the house. They decided, I had given them the number. They decided to call him, and then they called me back. So I went back to the station, and they told me, you have to agree to sleep together, and then tomorrow you come and we talk about it. I told them, no. If we've been fighting, we can't stay in one house. Because I am with the children, let me stay in the house. He goes somewhere, and then tomorrow we come and talk. He said he can't leave the house. We had to sleep outside, outside the new house. Yeah, it was a 7th floor building, so we slept outside the gate with the children, up to around 5 when a man came.
5 in the morning.
Yeah, almost 5.
And these are his children.
These are his children.
His own children.
His own children.
So
sleeping in the house, and the children are outside. So we slept in the house, in the floor, till around 5 when a neighbor came and told, just come and stay in my house till morning. So finally, when we went back, the two of us, after 3 days, I was summoned to go to the police station because I abused him.
Wow.
I was abused. I'm the one who abused. So I went to the police station. Thank God for the children. They never lied. So my son came and they said, all of you get outside. He will tell us the truth. So my son came in and told them the truth. So he was told to get out of the house, and we went back to the house.
How old was he?
My son was around 6 years.
Wow. But you know, already just listening to your story, I can see so many challenges. First of all, here in Kenya, there is a law against domestic abuse. But now the people who are supposed to enforce the law, you know, how you go to the police station and they say, what do you want us to do? And then secondly, so that was wrong. And then secondly, they say, you go and call your husband. How can you tell the victim to call the abuser? You know, how do you do that? You call him and tell him to come. And then even when you tell me how the child was asked, are they trained to deal with children? Because it's very traumatic for the children to, yes. And so they are supposed to have special training, particularly with young children, so that they can be able to get the truth, but in a way that does not traumatize the child. So we thank God at least that the law is there, because it has not always been there. And in many of our countries, we now do have laws about domestic abuse, but the implementation is still a problem.
We need to team up so that each one will play the role that is supposed to play, and these things will end.
In fact, none of us can afford to be uninvolved.
Yes.
Because either you are the one who is being abused or you are affected. Yes. And by keeping quiet and saying that it doesn't concern me, we condone, we propagate, we perpetuate, we even encourage it by keeping silent. So none of us can sit pretty and say, it doesn't concern me.
Debbie, I'd like to ask you to tell our viewers about the End It Now program, the initiative of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Yes. The initiative is to break that silence and also the virus. We call it virus because it has a spirit that you will never understand. And it destroys our community, starting by our families. So what we do, women, men, children, we come together. We speak about it. We help each other so that we break. So when you speak, when you talk about something, often it helps. It involves everybody. As a leader, in whatever level you are, you can use it to train and inform others. Yes. Because without information, it will remain silent. And what we need, our purpose is to break the silence, to talk about it.
And actually, it's a good thing that our church cares. And our church has joined the international community to say, we need to end it now. Yeah? We need to end no longer abuse against women, but interpersonal violence. Because even men are abused, children are abused.
We need to educate or sensitize these victims, the ones who have been abused, to come out and be strong. Because if you are not strong, you'll be swayed to any side of the wind. Imagine if I had moved houses because, you know, my neighbors have known I was abused. Now, how am I going to live with these people? Imagine I keep on moving from this house, I go to another house. It really doesn't make sense. But if I am strong, I remained in that house for 2 years. And I never feared anybody. I could just walk in, say, it doesn't matter what they'll say. Just be strong. Don't listen to what the society will talk about.
And you know, Phoebe, you have reminded me something. This abuse begins very early. I'm working with a lady currently who started being abused when she was very young as a baby. Her mother abused her. She lived with her father who abused her. An uncle abused her sexually. She got married hoping that she's being rescued. But it's the proverbial jumping from the frying pan to the fire. The husband started abusing her. They have been married for close to 20 years. She's abused physically, emotionally, sexually, and even spiritually. The husband asks her, what kind of Christian are you? Because he brought her to the church. This is a very beautiful lady, but her self-esteem is zero. She has gone into depression. And then her children have also started manifesting symptoms of being broken. And instead, the husband tells her, these are your traits. So she has been abused. It's a cycle. And you know, many times we have seen young people who are abused. There's dating violence. So they are abused when they are dating. Many of them, when I speak to them, they don't know they are being abused. Because that is how they are being treated. And so they think they are being loved when they are slapped and shouted at. They say, he loves me. When they are being controlled, they think that is love. So we need to have a paradigm shift and re-engineer their way of thinking that this is not the norm, this is not right, this is not the way God intended you to be treated. Our God is a loving God, and he wants us to enjoy life and live it to the fullest. The Bible says he came to give life and give it much more abundantly. But the devil, the enemy, is out to kill, steal, and destroy. It's not the plan of God for us to be abused. So find help and you will be helped.
Ladies, unfortunately, we've run out of time, so we're going to have to bring our program to an end. You and me, who maybe in our church community, maybe in our neighborhood, there are people who are hurting right now. And we have become experts at closing our eyes and not wanting to get involved. I want to challenge you. Don't wait until someone has died on your doorstep before you become concerned. What can you do to be of help, to be of support? What can you do to encourage this neighbor of yours who you suspect is being abused? What can you do? How can you be God's hand to help someone who needs your help today? Go on Google, End It Now. Look for resources. If you're a church leader and you've been touched by the things that we're talking about today, go and find resources. Begin a discussion in your church. See what you can do to try and contribute positively to end the violence. This is not the way God intended for us to live. God bless you.